You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast.
You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. My name is Sean Wilkie, and along with my awesome co-host, we interview the innovators in this space every week. Ivan, why don't you go ahead and introduce today's guest?
Hi, my name is Ivan Zach, and I'm happy to introduce Amanda Hoffmeyer. We're going to talk about real-time monitoring for clients, or I guess for patients for clients, whichever way you put it, in the veterinary hospitals. Amanda is the CEO of Fur Baby Tracker. She's also a CEO of Red Brick Partners, which is a B2B veterinary marketing company. Previously, she was a director of marketing at Lightcure LC, where she worked on companion animal health. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Marketing Management from Pembroke College of Business at Virginia Tech, BFA in Studio Arts from Virginia Tech School of Visual Arts, and multi-time NAVC Vetty Award winner for veterinary marketing. On the personal side of things, her favorite animal movie is The Emperor's New Groove, owns 3 cats. I'm not going to be able to pronounce it. Amanda, it's you. What are the names of the cats?
Charlemagne, Schrody, and Baxter.
There we go. Thank you. So monitoring for clients, what comes to mind immediately is it the monitoring device? Is it monitoring where your cat is inside of the hospital? Monitoring in what way?
Yeah, and it is a common question that we've gotten is, hey, is this like a tracker that we're going to find our lost pet? And it's not a tracker for a lost pet. What it really is a tool that's designed to help the pet owner know what's going on with their pet when they drop them off at the clinic. So it's an in-clinic communication tool for the staff to all be on the same page about the real-time status of a pet, as well as for the pet owner.
Cool. So how does that work? Is this video, text? Is it location? We had a bunch of these ideas when I was in SmartFlow, and I think that you're kind of tackling that very specifically. So I want to kind of to unwrap that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's an application. It's cloud-based, so it works off of every single device in the clinic, whether it's a veterinary technician's personal cell phone or it's the receptionist's desktop computer. So it's an application that's all completely customized for every single clinic that allows them to do kind of 2 major things. One, the analogy I like to use is a pizza tracker. So if you've ever tracked a pizza from Domino's, or I live in the Northeast, and even some of our mom and pop shops do pizza trackers now, what it lets you do is kind of look at your pizza on its journey from being made to being in the oven, in the car, or coming to your house. So this is the same concept for the pet. So the pet owner is going to receive real-time text messages throughout their pet's plan of care so they can see, okay, great. Charlemagne is in surgical prep. Okay, great. He's in surgery. He's out. He's getting laser therapy. He's ready for pickup. So as a pet owner, I get a text message every time a tracker changes. And I also have an app that is made for me. So I can go in and I can see all that information too. So it's kind of the combination of the pizza tracker. And for anyone out there who has small children, you may be familiar with daycare trackers. I have a 3-year-old. And so his daycare has an app where I get updates throughout the day of pictures of him. I can get little special notes from the teacher if he was bad or extra good, what he ate for lunch. So, really keeps me as a parent in the loop all day long on what's going on. So that's the other side of Fur Baby Tracker, is that we can share real-time information with the pet owner to, both include them really in the journey of care, but also to just give them that peace of mind that they really want when they're worried about their pet. So they can receive pictures, they can receive notes, and other information like foods or medications if the clinic chooses to share that information. And again, it's all coming via text as well as through an application.
Welcome to the show. I love how you guys just jumped right into it. It didn't even welcome her, Ivan. That was kind of rude. This is so cool for my car. I just dropped off my car the other day, and it's always mysterious, and I think it's probably the same in the pet care space. Is you drop off and you wait, and you wait and you wait and you wait. So actually, a question for you, Ivan, was this function you guys had built into SmartFlow? Because it seems like a big gap on that journey through the workflow.
Yeah, we really, really wanted to tackle this problem. It solves a huge need. And I just had a terrible thought when you were describing it about pizza. I was thinking about pet care. Is that about the cremation phases of the pet going into, but bad analogy.
Oh my God.
So, but what happens is that really prevents people to, you always tell them, call us after 2, and then they call you at noon. And they go, how's Fluffy doing? And then the reception has no idea what's going on in the back. They page the technician. The technician is doing whatever procedure it is. So they start yelling at them, and they're like, well, we're with the Fluffy right now doing X, Y, Z, and then everybody's distracted. So it's a huge need. In SmartFlow, it was monitoring and communicating with everybody. So you click the button and it shows where it is. Our dream was to actually text at the moment when you click that button, text to the owner. So my question is, how do you trigger it? Is it just the manual input? Is there any sort of automation? Because it seems like it could create a lot of labor on the side of the veterinary hospital to text. Is there any sort of automation that could help trigger these events?
All of those are good points. And what you just explained in terms of the process was kind of what I witnessed before I decided to build Fur Baby. Was that I was at an oncology clinic filming some video of a new treatment technology, and the care that pets were getting was incredible. And what happened was that the receptionist spent a lot of her day in the treatment room because of the phone calls, just so many phone calls. People wanted to know what was going on. It was extremely distracting to the technicians to have to stop what they were doing, get that update. Obviously, the pet owner is sitting on hold the whole time, so not really a great workflow for the clinic, in that the receptionist was spending a lot of time running back and forth. The technicians were spending a lot of time stopping what they were doing. So from a technology standpoint, everything has been built to really try to make life simpler for technicians and for reception. So from the receptionist standpoint, the only thing they have to do is have their desktop machine open, and they have this great dashboard where if somebody does call in, they can just click on the pet and they can tell exactly what the status is. And there's also like a note section so that the staff can internally communicate with each other about a pet on that record. But in terms of the updates actually coming from the technicians, everything is driven by drop-downs. So even the notes, there's a completely customizable note database. So what each clinic can do is based on the tone that they want to adopt, because I'm a marketing person, so I'm big on the clinic making sure that their voice is heard and the way that they want to communicate with pet owners. And obviously also just the standardization of communication is super important for clinics, especially as we grow and corporate becomes more of a thing. So the note database is customizable, and it actually dynamically pulls in the pet's name on the note. So even though you're just clicking a drop down to say, hey, send the post-surgical note, to the pet owner, they're getting a really, really custom message from you. And at the same time, you can just snap that picture with your cell phone, and all of a sudden, we've got a whole new experience for the customer. So ultimately, very, very transactional for the staff to be making those updates.
It's so interesting. I'm just witnessing over the last couple of months of the podcast is the tech stack in veterinary medicine is growing so deep. It's unbelievable. And the thing that comes to mind obviously is integration with things like SmartFlow and other flow management applications. Have you explored that yet, Amanda? Do you have any kind of hopes and desires? We've got lots of people listen to this show. I know CEOs of major veterinary chains listen to this show, and so it's kind of interesting because tell us your dreams, because I'm sure there's somebody going to listen to this that's probably going to call you and ask you about it.
So, Fur Baby Tracker, we're trying to do one thing right now and do one thing really well, which is facilitate that in-clinic communication and keep everybody on the same page. But, ultimately we have talked to some folks in telemedicine who have, had interest in potential collaborations and things of that nature because, this need, it makes sense really to work together. So we're actively really looking for those kind of partnerships and collaborations that are good for all of the technologies, and ultimately are just trying to figure out how to really improve workflow for the clinic, but, give that pet owner really the white glove experience that we expect. I mean, we can get a pizza tracked to our front door. We should really be able to do a lot more when our pet is separated from us.
That's great. From the value proposition, just I'm going to probably probe a little bit in the direction where you might be in the discovery phase right now. When you're talking to veterinarians, because veterinarians like a lot of, shiny objects, and then they're really hard to sell to. So I think that what you're proposing is very valuable. It's certainly, at least in my mind, it creates a smooth workflow, and it prevents of the phone calls coming in. It doesn't answer the phone calls. It just prevents extra stuff and the load on the front desk. And as we know, the front desk is the most busy department in the hospital. So that decreases the stress and the communication between the front and the back. So I think it's wonderful. When you explain it to a veterinarian, how do you explain, where is their savings? Is it the efficiency? What problem do we solve for them? Because in general, the communication is wonderful. The quality of care is wonderful, but where's the money? Like, that's sort of a thing that you always have to answer to a veterinarian. So if you can walk us through the business case that you present to a veterinarian, that'd be great.
So, obviously the big time saver here is with the call volume. So most clinics are using the platform to, instead of making that proactive call to the pet owner, they'll send them a quick message through FurBaby through one of their standard notes that says, hey, we have so-and-so's blood work done. Give us a call. We want to review it. We found something that we'd like to treat today. So instead, before you're making a call, you're getting the voicemail. Maybe the client is listening to the voicemail and calling back, maybe not. So if they do, then they call back. Nobody knows what the deal is. So obviously, one big benefit here is just that decrease in the outbound calls, the decrease in the inbound calls. And then when the inbound calls do come back, we're saving a lot of staff time that they're not running in the back room and distracting multiple people from their specific task at hand. But the other thing that we are seeing is that when FurBaby is being used as a real-time communication tool, especially in like surgical situations, one example I can give is, in a regular dental cleaning, you go in, you're not looking for anything necessarily, but you find a tooth that needs to come out. You're like, oh, if we could just tell the pet owner this right now and snap them a picture of it, they'd approve it. We can convert this into a surgery. It's better for the pet. We're going to make more money off of it. And we're seeing a lot of clinics doing exactly that with the platform. So instead, where that might have been, okay, well, we can't keep the pet under anesthesia. We're done here. They have to come back again now. We have to go through all this again. That's not the case with the platform. And just from a revenue perspective, the model of FurBaby Tracker is that we do recommend that the clinics are baking in a small technology fee for every pet that they track. That's how it works in other spaces. I know in specifically the human daycare space, the parent is the one kind of paying for the technology. So ultimately, we're going to save time, but we also are going to be making a little revenue on every single pet that we track.
So you're actually monetizing the owner.
So what we do is, the clinic is FurBaby Tracker's customer, but what we recommend the clinic do is that they pass along that technology fee. And it's funny because some clinics are choosing to bake that in, but there's other clinics that say, no, we want to line item that because the pet owner has more value in knowing like, oh, this is something that I'm getting and I'm going to take this more seriously because, this is a service being provided to me instead of it just being kind of hidden. So there's kind of a case for both.
That's fair. So this really reminds me about the conversation that I had, and Shawn mentioned the mechanic that I had that when I worked at IDEX, one of the leaders there was texting to everybody, and she said she was at her mechanic, and they did that. They were looking at the car, they were taking pictures, and then she went for like an oil change, and then over the text message, they said, there's another part, here's the picture, $900 extra. Do you want it to be done or not right now? You can come back later. And then, she was impressed. She was texting to the entire team, and she was saying, isn't this the time for veterinary medicine to have something like that? Which I told her it's the time to get a new mechanic. But the point is that I think you are getting this point across. And I think this is great because so now I think there's another value to this. It's an upsell. I mean, if you put it, in the right terms, it's an upsell. Whatever you need to do, you not only help with the communication, decrease the workload, and then the inbound and outbound, but also the upsell mechanism, which is way easier to text back and say, sure, do it because I'm at work. I don't want to talk to you. I'm not picking up the phone. So that's just great.
Yeah, and to build on that, like I really like this idea of the upsell. It's almost like a premium feature, and I wonder, if it's something that is positioned to every client or if it's an upsell, because I know, like, especially with millennials and everybody being on their phone nowadays, people don't want a phone call in the middle of the day. I call Ivan all the time. He never answers his phone. He
There's
much
different
prefers
reasons for that,
text
Shawn.
messages.
It's just
Okay, right. I forgot about that. We've discussed this on an earlier episode, I believe. So we can just refer people back to episode, 4. So, but yeah, no, I like the idea of an upsell and, just this kind of multiple check-in per day and kind of, I'm sure your app, you can even have 8 check-ins during the course of a day or 4 check-ins and just kind of positioning it for the clients that need it or want it. But then I think it also has value for every client. So I think your approach is probably right, where it's just build it into every invoice and don't necessarily do it as an upsell. But there's probably some gold in there for an upsell, even if it was a standard. You get so many check-ins per day. I'd be interested to hear if you've thought any more about that, Amanda. Have you thought about, taking it to another level from where you're at? Like maybe it's like the gold and silver from a client communication perspective. And have you explored that at all?
Yeah, there definitely have been some thoughts about, the upsell potential in general, like as a large category. One particular thing was like, hey, if you're a clinic who you recommend a certain product post-surgically or, whatever the case may be, or you've got an account where you prefer that they, do their online pharmacy reorders, that there would be a way to kind of communicate that through the platform. Because then ultimately, we're creating an ecosystem where it is kind of the point of contact for that communication with the client, and the clinic is going to get value in a lot of different ways. And, one thing too is we're trying to give a little bit of look behind that curtain just from a philosophical standpoint that, I'm just going to talk about laser therapy for a moment because I've worked with a laser therapy company for so many years, but your pet owners probably don't know you're doing laser on every single post-surgical pet. And if they see a tracker for laser therapy and then they get a cute picture of their pet in goggles, that's going on social media. You're going to get soft benefits of them texting that to all of their friends and, oh my gosh, look how great my clinic is. So yeah, we really are trying to, figure out ways that the application can provide value to the clinic in a bigger type of way.
Are the owners getting it through the text message or also inside of the app?
Both, yeah. So they get a notification on the text message that they have a picture waiting for them. They have to go in the app to look at the pictures, but all the notes come via text. And the way it kind of tactically works is the receptionist checks the pet in. And when they check the pet in, the owner immediately gets a text message that says, great news, your veterinarian uses for a baby tracker. Click here to download the app and click here to set your password. So reception never has to do anything with telling them what to do because everything's kind of automated through the messaging system.
It's a great buy flow for distributing it. And then, yeah. Oh, wow. That's cool. So a little pivot in the question. So this is super interesting. I've been following telemedicine companies for a while, and it's been such a, topic on, multiple VIS and people are talking about there's several vendors on the market. And I've been following, there was a lot of development into the video with the owner. And then I was having a hard time understanding, how do you incorporate it into your workflow? Like, how do you add this? People don't like video. We kind of turned it on for this episode, but not all people want to do that. So, and then with several companies that I've been talking to, they said that people actually, out of the functionalities that they have in telemedicine, the text is more actually utilized. So how do you see that? Do you see that the video will take over, or actually we're going to go back to more this text messaging, and that's what people prefer?
My opinion is that the text messaging is going to be preferential because it's so passive. The video thing is hard because the benefit to the text is it just comes to you and you don't have to actively seek it out and you don't have to stop and take time. It's really fast and easy, but even I go back to the daycare discussion, my kids always had a camera. I've never looked at it because I don't have time to sit there and, try to figure out which little head is his. And I don't necessarily think that the video feeds are going to be the end all be all. There's always going to be a subset of people who, really wants that information to feel comfortable, but text messaging is here to stay, in my opinion.
Yeah, big time. So one final question from me is, have you yet worked in any approval process for billings? So say there's a large procedure that needs to be done on a pet that hasn't been approved or discussed. Is the app used for approval process for those procedures? Have you had anybody ask about that, or are you doing that now?
So we have not had anybody ask about it yet. The app does have one functionality that allows the pet owner to kind of communicate back. And so I know that some clinics are using that. It's called a drop-off note. So in the application, the pet owner has the ability to send a one-directional note, and it's kind of labeled drop-off note. It's not an expectation that you're going to be texting back and forth with the technician. However, I do know that some clinics say, hey, you know, if we send you a picture during surgery, go ahead and you can put in that drop-off note an approval if you want us to go ahead and do something. So it's not formalized yet, but, you know, the more stories we're hearing about it being used in that manner, that's definitely on the feature roadmap.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's one thing that I've learned multiple times in startup is you're so lucky to be able to have people tell you what to do next, because if it was up to me, I would be building software that no one would use. It's great once you actually start to close that feedback loop. This has been super exciting and interesting and really quick. I don't know where the time went. I've got a couple more questions for you as we kind of wrap up here. Amanda, it was super awesome to have you on the show. We like to ask everybody a couple of questions to wrap up. One is any books or literature that you've come across in your career at this point?
Yeah, for sure. There's one particular book that I buy every year, and it's called the Non-Obvious Trend series. I definitely recommend that. It usually comes out either at the end of the year or right at the beginning, but it's written by a futurist, and he does a great job of curating. Usually I think it's like 15 trends, but it's really super interesting, especially for people in technology, because it looks at these trends that kind of go across different spaces. And I find that I spend so much time with those books just really reading and getting great ideas, especially for veterinary medicine, as you look at these trends that extend way beyond our industry. And How I Built This is definitely a must-listen podcast for anybody trying to start something.
Awesome. That's great. And then the last one is, who else do you know that you think we should have on our show?
Elizabeth Green, the CEO from Brief Media. I would highly recommend talking to her, because those guys, you know, I have my marketing agency as well, so I work with them very closely with clients and, you know, helping to do media placements. And the stuff that they are doing with data is incredibly innovative. I mean, when you start talking about the stack development in the veterinary industry, I think that those guys would be definitely worth talking to.
Thank you so much for listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. If you want to hear about our new episodes, please follow us on any social media channel. Also, you can check out our website at veterinaryinnovationpodcast.com. See you next week.